Hi, welcome back to another episode of Rusted Recreation. Few takeaways from last week's episode is you don't have to be a professional to rebuild an engine. It does help to have a basic understanding of things. Two, even if you have a basic understanding of things, you can still mess things up. They're mechanical. They're not living creatures. We're allowed to mess things up. We can order new parts for them. That new set of bearings, yeah, I cost myself another $40. So now we're almost $400 deep into this budget build. Um, so, mistakes cost money, but in the grand scheme of things, uh, a $40 lesson is pretty cheap. Interest of full disclosure, I screwed 3 bearings up the other day. The the first or the second bearing I set, this one right here, I set it in there crooked. Somehow I got off center in the bore. I'm not quite sure how or why, what, when, where. Well, I know the when and the where. Um, but the camshaft wouldn't slide through it. The kind of wants to be in line with everything else for it to go through. So, yeah, that was 3 bearings. Luckily, there's 5 bearings in a set. I do have the 2 end bearings installed now, with the camshaft installed. I wasn't really in a mood for filming yesterday. It was Christmas. I got the camshaft retainer installed in the back. But yeah, I wasn't happy with myself, but we're moving forward. That's the only thing you can do. Just keep moving forward. We're going to be putting the rotating assembly and hopefully get the final completion of the assembly of this motor done in this episode. And with any luck, it makes noise at the end of this episode. I don't want to make any promises. It's going to make noise. One way or another, it's going to make noise. All right, we're getting ready to start putting the main bearings in this motor. And these are the bearings that Brad, these are the bearings that were in this motor when I pulled it apart. And it doesn't look like there's any wear on them. So I'm presuming that they started to build this motor and then just never finished for whatever reason. Maybe they lost the parts that they needed. Now, if you look at your bearings, you'll notice that notch in them right there. That's the lock. And then you'll notice a notch in your block that corresponds to the notch, the bump out in the bearing. Make sure you get them in there flush. Now, just in case these bearings had been run, I did pull them out and keep them in order that they came out of. If you're in a situation where you're reusing bearings, you want to make sure you get them back on the same journal that they came off of. Like I said, I'm not an engine expert. I've built a lot of go-kart motors, and I watched a lot of engine masters. I have a pretty good idea of what's going on. I'm not a complete novice coming into this, but I'm not a pro either. Like I said, I don't think a pro would be doing this and putting it on video anyways. I'm pretty sure they want to keep their name away. I don't know if they still do the Engine Masters Challenge or not. But it'd be cool if there was a segment for Frankenstein motors. Probably wouldn't be much readership or viewership if they did still have that. I know the magazine doesn't exist anymore. Nobody wants to read anything on paper, which is a shame. I got stacks and stacks of magazines sitting in the house. I got a repair manual for every vehicle I've ever owned, and some that I haven't. And the Chilton's manual went from being that thick to now you get a Chilton's manual and it's only that thick. Yeah, they leave a lot of information out anymore. Some assembly lube on these bearings. Good and lathered up here. Give it as much chance of survival as we can. Oh, man. Things aren't right. Oh. Now this is the crankshaft that came out of this motor, and it's nowhere near as dirty as everything else. I almost have to wager that this crank, well, there's some dirty on it there. Maybe that's just heat stress. Maybe it's just from sitting, but this doesn't look like a used crank. Or if it is, there's some markings on it. That might be junkyard markings. Now, helps if I'm holding this from the right direction. Over here where y'all can see me smash my fingers. And you gently lower it down into its bearings. There we are. And once again, we're going to make sure everything's cleaned up. And you can see those bearings look like they're never been used. They might have been abused a little bit, but they haven't been used. So this is our main cap. Sure we get the lined up the right direction. You got the oil pump drive. If you ever you got your lock there on your bearing, and we got our lock on this side. If you're ever in doubt, they go lock to lock. I was looking at my oil pump drive there, and it lines up on that side. Oh, talking to y'all, I almost forgot a step. Make sure we get these things good and lubed up before we install. Oh, I'm trying to put it on back. See, it won't let you put it on backwards. I told you all about making sure you got it lined up right. Both sides of the cap are fully seated. Now your rod caps. Your rod caps are machined to the block. They have to go back in where they came out. They have to point the right direction. If you look, they are numbered. I don't know if you can see that or not. It's a 4, and then it's got an arrow on it pointing towards the front of the engine. But once again, you can look at your bearing and see that that's the lock side of your bearing. That's the side pointing forward. This is the lock side of our bearing on the block. So, and this is number 4. They count from the front to the back. So front bearing's number 1. The main bearing would be number 5, but they don't have to stamp it. It only ever fits in one spot. Okay, I just pulled the main cap bolts out of the sonic cleaner. And we're going to make sure we get the last of the residue off the threads. Yeah, I'm not going to call it a right way or a wrong way. It's just the way I'm doing it. Make sure the threads are good and clean before you put some Loctite on them. Loctite doesn't do any good if they're loaded down with oil. So, scary thought, you remember how this block was missing bolts when we took it apart? Hope that doesn't mean there's just stuff stuck down in the block. I suppose a rational person would have probably looked at that first. Alright, they're all torqued down, all been verified. Crank still rotates easily. And we're moving in the right direction, ladies and gentlemen. Houston, we have a problem. I didn't think about the rod journals being different sizes. Apparently that the 4.3 has a thicker rod journal than the 5.7 does. We're going to be backpedaling here, but let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. It's got the bearings installed on it. And you put those together. So, the rods are not the same from a 4.3 to a 5.7. You put that. Put that rod on there. You get a nice tight fit. Rotates, but it doesn't pull up and down. So, well, we knew we was going to encounter a problem sooner or later. It was just intuitive. The rods aren't the same. I do believe the pistons are the same. And I think the piston pins are the same. So it might be a matter of knocking a couple of pins out of these pistons and putting some new rods on. Might revisit a couple of the ones that I already got. We know that we have to replace at least 2 pistons, just that their rings are seized in the sleeves. Alrighty, excuse the mess. I wasn't expecting to be using my press. And kind of got it back here out of the way. The press didn't work. And one of them situations where you're supposed to fix it with fire. That'll be my next step. Alright, try to heat this rod end up. Maybe we press it while it's hot. Alright, we're back at the press. Remember my handle. Oh. Man, that piston's a little bit warm, folks. Alright, although the pin came out, we broke that piston. Luckily, we got 6 more shots to get it right, or 5 more shots to get it right. But there's the damage caused when it cleared the first time. Back to the drawing board. Alrighty. It took a little bit. Figure out the exact process. Show you some of the results. Okay, we've seen the broken piston. That was from using that Torx bit, the center of the pin, and try to push it through. Allowed the pin to kick sideways. This is what happens when you try to press the pin through without heating it first. And then we got our success. I used the small spark plug socket, 3/8 drive, about the perfect size of that pin, and it kept the pin going down straight as it cleared the edge of the piston, allowing that all to function properly. So we're going to do one more. See if I can't get that second piston I'm looking for. And then we'll pull some rings and see if we can't swap out them couple of bad rings I was looking at on them other 2 that came out of the 5.7. What we're going to end up with is a pair of 4.3 pistons, sitting on 5.7 rods. The 4.3 is still helping bring this thing back to life. Just not as easily as I originally imagined. But we'll keep plugging forward on this, and dang it, I want to have a running motor by the time I air this. Y'all just have to stay tuned to see if I actually get it running. Okay, so we're going to get the whole process. I think I got it pretty well figured out. We heat the rod a whole bunch before we put it in the press. And then you keep heating the rod as long as if it starts pressing tight, throw more heat at it. On this one, it doesn't matter really so much if I explode the piston, but we want to keep that rod in good shape. If your hands are sensitive to heat, you might wear welding gloves or something like that. And I can't tell you how long to do that for, or what it looks like when it's ready. I just kind of, like a hook. I'm just kind of like, yeah, that feels like it's good. Get a socket in here. Need a little bit more room. I don't like that. Okay. I really hope I caught that. Well, the parts are too hot to handle, but that happened. what on earth caused that? Remember, we don't really care so much about the rod. I mean, we didn't care about the piston, but we need to save the rod. Fun times with shop press. Save the piston, or save the rod. Piston pin did not save the piston. Apparently I forgot to hit play on the last video and I did not get to show you one coming out smoothly. But you do get to see them going back in. Hopefully we don't screw anything up putting this back together. Then I got the 5.7 rods going on the 4.3 pistons. Okay, heat the rod and just swell that opening up so the pin goes through easily. Oh, I should have been more ready. Okay, we have our pin pressed on. Alright, here we go. Round 2. Oh, I need a rod. Oh, there it is. I knew it was over here. Same deal, heat the end of it. Ah! Okay. Mistakes have been made. But you can't let defeat stand in the way of victory. You can't let one little moment just stop you from your goal. That we've encountered several issues today. We're overcoming them. I still have 2 pistons left. I've already pressed the pin and rod off of one. So we'll try to get this 5.7 rod back on there again. And again, and again, however many times it takes, whatever it takes. Failure's not an option. Okay, now pep talk aside, let's try this again, and hopefully we don't have any more footage of exploding pistons for you to watch. I'll let it cool off and find out if we're good or not. Okay. Finally back to where I thought we were at noon. And we're going to be putting pistons in. Couple things to note when you're installing pistons. That, well, when you get to the rod end of things, that there is a lock on these bearings, just like there is on the main bearings. And when you put the cap on, they go lock to lock. Caps are matched to the rods. Make sure you put the cap that came off the rod back on the rod. And then if you notice, get a good view of that or not, there's a chamfer on that side of the rod that goes to the outside of the journal. These two sides would be butted up together. This would be to the outside of the journal. I think get a good healthy dose of oil on everything before we go to installing. Okay, what we got here is homemade piston ring compressor, piece of sheet metal with some clamps against it, hose clamps. We'll see if we can get any movement. Oh, I'll probably put cardboard under there for oil everywhere. I'm starting into the messy part. Whoa. Not supposed to suck that sleeve down in there with it. Oh. Ways you can screw a motor up. Okay. Yeah. Back to the drawing board. Alrighty, we're going to try a different placement. Oh. Different placement of the metal in the clamp. We got the clamp right at the bottom of the metal now. Piston lined up. Sure we're not going to jam it into the rod journal. Ooh, we got the rings in. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a little bit of patience. A little bit of patience is all you need. What if I just eliminate the middleman? That's legitimate, right? Oh, you have to have noticed my frustration and the difficulties, and you gotta wonder, is this something for me? And you know, nobody can answer that question but you. But you'll never know if you don't try. Cheaper than going to school for it. All I gotta say is if you're betting against me, you need to be aware that I have ADD and this is a hyper focused moment. Here we go. 16 of the best lifters I could find. Y'all remember that from the first video or not? If you're taking odds on this, you're taking odds on just whether or not it'll start and run? Or are we betting on how long it runs? How many trips to the off-road park does it last? Or maybe you're betting on both. Oh, welcome back. It's the next day. I went ahead and done some prep work ahead of time. Prep work is one of those things you always kind of forget about. It takes quite a bit of your time as far as the actual engine building goes. And then you can about double that prep time when you're working with used junkyard parts, trying to put this all back together and make it live for a little while anyways. At least want to go to the off-road park one time to make all this worthwhile. Alrighty, here's the prep work. I got thread sealer on the bolts. The heads have been cleaned up as good as I'm going to clean them up. If it turns out that the valve stems leak, that I do have the valve stem seals, I just don't feel like messing with it, and we can do that in vehicle if we have to. Hopefully that doesn't become an issue. As far as the block goes, we got the dog bone retainer cleaned up and installed. I got the new head gasket sitting on the block. So we're getting ready to install head bolts. All these bolts came out with thread sealer on them, so I'm assuming that they all go back in with thread sealer on them. Although I've made a lot of assumptions during this video already, they've kind of hit me in the back a couple times so far. Snug lugging everything up, not trying to over-torque anything at the moment. Get them all at a good starting point. Alrighty. According to the book here, that according to, oh, I went a page too far. So yeah, 5'7", and 96 and newer models. We start out at 22 foot-pounds. For all the bolts, and then they must be tightened in a sequence. Short bolts get 55 degrees a turn. Medium length bolts 65 degrees, and long bolts go 75 degrees. I kind of understand why they do that. I don't like that they do that. I'd rather the old school method of 25, 45, and 65 foot-pounds in progressive passes. But that's not the motor I have, so. And I think those are aluminum bolts on the short bolts, so we definitely don't want to over-tighten them. And I'm reusing head studs that tighten down like a torque to yield bolt. Yeah, we're probably creating more problems than we're fixing, but it's going to go together. We're going to make noise with it. Noise of some kind or another. Okay, as you see, they're all torqued down. I don't have a degree wheel, but I've been in construction long enough that I know what these angles look like. And just, reference from a straight surface, and then, you can generally judge what the rough angle is. And just in case these are reused torque to yield bolts, I went a little bit further on all the studs. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that. In fact, I don't recommend it. Follow the manufacturer's instructions. If you break a head bolt up in your block, it is not on me. But if you're following this to a T and doing everything exactly the way I do, you might be making the same mistakes I'm making. Watch this all the way through, and let's see how things turn out before you make any snap decisions. Alright, it's always something, isn't it? I had to run to town and get some Woodruff keys for the crankshaft. Now we're going to install the timing set, timing cover, and the rear main. Alrighty, we've hit another snag, putting the oil pan on. At the sump on the 4-3's oil pan is that much deeper. So a good 2 inch, inch and a half, 2 inches difference in the sump. I think we can just rotate that, pick up a single down. Does not appear to be welded anywhere. Oh yeah. Well, that's easy enough. Now does the screen rotate back up that easily? The screen does not rotate. Huh. Get on extreme while holding this. Oh, that just mangles it. We might be spending more money. Alright, while we wait on a new oil pickup tube that matches this engine, go ahead and put the harmonic balancer back on. Heat up the inside of it, expand it. You don't want to heat it too much because there is like a rubber inside of there that you don't want to melt out. Then heat it up and jam it on there and see how this goes. Alrighty, harmonic balancer's installed. It is not the way you're supposed to do it. Do not do what I do. Follow the manufacturer's directions. I'm going to go ahead and put the crank bolt in, put a little bit of red Loctite on that, and run her down until she's like 90 foot-pounds, something like that. Alright, welcome back. Been about a week since we last shot anything on this engine. I got the new oil pump pickup tube put on. Only one store in town actually had that in stock. That was Napa. Everybody else had to order it. I guess small block Chevy stuff is getting hard to come by. We're overcoming our debacles from last week and moving forward. I already have the gasket installed last week with silicone in place there. I hope it holds. That was really probably should have pulled that gasket and cleaned the silicone off of it, but I bolted it down and held it in place while it cured, so hopefully that works for what we need. Alrighty, we got the oil pump installed, oil pump pickup, oil pan. Now we're moving over to the top end of this motor. We're going to get the push rods installed. I took a gray scratch pad and cleaned all the caked on oil residue off of them. And then I sighted down the center of them, make sure I could see light through them and that they looked all clean. And I believe that these will be acceptable for our little experiment here. A little bit of extended lube on all the push rod ends. David Mays is on the rubber. And since these have come off of, they've been ran together, I want to keep these pieces with the rocker arm that they came off of. Alright, we got all the push rods, rocker arms installed, and it comes down to tightening these up. Get it snug. And once you have it snug, you want to go a quarter turn, a preload. You want to make sure that you're on the base circle. And number one's up on top of his compression stroke right now. So both lobes are on their base circle. And still wiggle out or not. Alright. Now that quarter turn, a preload. Now you rotate the engine over. Oh, there's another way. There's the intake opening and exhaust closing that you can go down through here and you can see which lifters appear to be down on their base circle. And you can adjust those rockers. Okay, we've got rocker arms all adjusted. Earlier in the video I said a quarter turn once all the lashes absorbed. And I went back and checked my manual, and it's a full turn once all the lashes absorbed. Another thing you can check, as long as you look across here once you're all done and they're all adjusted about the same height, everything should be right. If you get them too tight, you'll know as soon as you go to start the engine, you won't have any compression. Every last one of the valves will be held open. It's just something to watch out for. Don't over tighten them, and you'll hear a bunch of rattle if you under tighten them. You can't spit a push rod out if you under tighten it, and then everything goes to heck. Alright, last time I left you, we was getting ready to install the intake and all that. Had a little bit interesting day at work today. Caught my hammer between my finger between a sledgehammer and a steel stake. Not one of my best moments. But we're going to get this intake installed, get the valve covers on it, and and maybe make this thing make noise here soon. I didn't necessarily say the best I could, but the best I wanted to. And I almost forgot, that's the easiest way to add oil. Alright, going for the double fisted pour here. All over the lifters. Easiest way you'll ever add oil. No funnels needed. Can we get that perfect flop? I guess, maybe. Sometimes people wonder how I can keep track of what bolts go where. You just look, I need 8 bolts. There's 8 bolts that look as gross as that intake looked when I took it off. I bet they fit. I say that and I'll be gone tomorrow. Now with these bolts running straight down through the intake, make sure you draw them down evenly, or you can walk the intake side to side on the head. Okay, intake's on. Now for valve covers. Hey, if you remember from the teardown video, these were missing bolts. As the 5-7 valve cover bolt, has the 4-3 valve cover bolt. It is not going to work without mangle modifying a valve cover. I'm probably going to have valve cover bolts tomorrow, and I really want to make this motor run tomorrow. We're going to continue to be hacks. And we're going to take, what do you think, outer bolts or inner bolts? I think we're going to leave the inner bolts and use the outer one as inners over here. All right. Most all the holes filled. Put this thing to bed. Alright, I done a little bit of work off camera. Keep running into problem after problem after problem. Trying to adapt some old school technology to new school stuff and adapting V6 stuff to the V8 stuff. So, you see me put the valve covers on and the intake on it. This is an old school HEI distributor. As you can see, it doesn't like living with the Vortec intake. So I had to take the plastic top, had to come off. I had something that wasn't on camera. I had plastic top on it and plastic top off. Looks like the 4.3 starter's going to work, but then the oil filter adapter is wildly smaller for the 4.3 versus the 5.7, and that's an item that was missing off the 5.7 block. So we are going to be scrambling for an oil filter adapter. I know I made a lot of promises at the beginning of this video that this motor was going to run. By the time I aired this video, unless I come up with something else to give you this week, the motor's not going to run. It might be its own separate video of this thing coming to life. I'm going to see what I can make happen for you. Oh yeah, here's when I was installing the flex plate off the 4.3, works on the 5.7. I had a stripped out or damaged threads in the crank, and I'm currently looking for a tap so I can clean those up. There'll be something needs to be done before it's installed, but as far as doing the test fire for y'all, I think we can live with 5 out of 6. I don't think that plywood is going to come flying off at us. Oh yeah, I'm looking down here, and I need to get a plug in the oil filter or in the oil pressure gallon. I need to get a plug in that oil pressure or an oil pressure gauge hooked up in there, so we don't erupt oil all over the place. And as far as that intake, I think we're just going to wildly spray ether at it and see if it goes broom. We might get a fireball. I might just blow the whole damn shop up. Who knows? Well, let me get on the track of finding parts. Okay, from a little bit of despair to I think we're happy again. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about when I say an oil filter adapter, that's what it is. It bolts onto the engine block right up into there. Allows you to screw your oil filter on. And the reason they do that is they also have a remote filter adapter that could bolt on that same position, and you could have a remote locate on your filter. That's where we're at. We get that installed and the starter installed, and we'll see what we can do about this intake thing. Okay, so we got the starter mounted. And we got the oil filter mounted. Now we're down to, intake, exhaust, hot battery. And I was really toying with the idea of making a top for this intake to mount a carburetor on, but just for the purpose of it making noise, we were going to use this plastic top on there. As you can see, that the old school HEI distributor interferes with the intake. So the old lady been on Dragon Ball Z.
Is that what she's watching?
Marathon. Grown man watching the anime. And maybe not so much that it'd be surprising to people. It's the grown man watching anime out here working on cars still. Okay, see if we don't even need that charger according to that battery gauge.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Oh. Wonder.
Hit the gear.
It looks like it's engaging. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it is engaging with the gear.
Might not have enough ass. You see the starter jumping around?
Well, that might be all she wrote.
You give her a little boosty boost.
There's a camper out there with a good starter in.
Yeah, big block serves the same as small block serves.
I can cut me.
That's the super guy Chevy questions. Hey, you do have your own Chevy though.
Yeah.
battery's still hooked up? Yeah, I'm gonna try something here.
Okay.
Oh.
That's a copper bar, right?
Yeah, that's a copper bar. Okay. Wow. Oh. Huh. Don't know, man. I think we got two fucked up starters.
Yeah. Highs and lows and highs and lows.
Yeah, shit. At least he ain't got customers standing here waiting to fucking take his truck away.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Well, yeah, the trials and tribulations, trying to meet a production schedule meets real world problems. But yeah, I guess those problems are all things I've generated on my own. Oh, we're held up by a starter. Mike's going to see if he's got one at home. If he doesn't have one at home, then we will pull one off of that blue truck I got sitting out in the driveway. It's technically Mike's truck at this point, but he said he didn't mind if I used the starter as long as he got it back. So we might be taking apart running vehicles to try and make this go for y'all. Yeah, I keep promising you running motor, and I keep failing you. That yeah, up and down, like a roller coaster. Y'all are along for the ride. Well, we didn't make it. Held up on that starter, and I needed to cut some video. So this is what y'all got. Failure. Next video we'll have it running, I hope. Our next video will be an RV video, in which case you'll know I didn't get it running this week. Back in town working my full-time job, so I get a little bit more time in the evening. I'm not quite as tired. So maybe we'll get some more done. Maybe I'll have a running motor for the next video.